It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, Britain's most notorious prisoner and his latest bid for freedom. Charles Bronson has spent most of the past 50 years behind bars. Now a parole review will decide whether he should be released. Ahead of that decision, he's been in touch with our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt. Also tonight, 2 more UK police forces say they're looking into claims emerging from the Epstein files. Surrey police are urging people to come forward if they have any information about allegations from the 90s. West Midlands police are assessing claims about flights into and out of Birmingham Airport. We'll have the latest. Plus, a group of MPs calls for the government to immediately ban Brazilian butt lifts as part of a clampdown on non-surgical cosmetic procedures. I'll be speaking to a woman whose BBL left her with a blood clot that could have killed her. And I'm afraid to say a depressingly familiar tale. I'll be speaking to the boss of Kick It Out after the 20th alleged incident of racist abuse against Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. All that to come and more here on the UK Tonight. He is, quite simply, the most notorious prisoner in Britain, who served more than half a century now behind bars. And now a parole review will decide whether Charles Bronson can be freed. Tonight, his lawyer has told Sky News the panel has adjourned without a decision and will reconvene tomorrow morning. It's a case that's fascinated the British public for years now, a man who never killed anyone, but who spent more time in prison than many murderers who have. After a string of violent incidents and kidnappings while in jail, one prison governor has told Sky News that Bronson is unlikely to ever be released. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt's been in contact with Bronson for 3 decades now and has been in touch with him again ahead of the review. Here's his report.
Over 50 years in jail and his 9th parole review. Britain's most notorious prisoner, Charles Bronson, is still Category A, under the highest security, locked up on his own 23 hours a day. People often think he's in for murder, but they're quite wrong. Bronson was jailed for armed robbery in 1974, but has since had his sentence extended to life after decades of violence and hostage-taking in prison. It's 12 years since his last conviction. What are Bronson's chances of freedom this time? The signs aren't good. Let me show you a letter that Charles Bronson wrote to me on New Year's Day. His first line is, "Sacked the legal team." Obviously not a good move ahead of the parole hearing. Last time he got a public hearing. This time it's all going to be held behind closed doors, as he points out in the letter. And he asks the question, just what are they afraid of? The letter was accompanied by one of his trademark tormented drawings. In it, he calls for an end to his half-century in jail. Psychiatrist Bob Johnson treated Bronson in prison. He knows him better than most. Let me show you this letter. So there, just have a quick read of that, Bob, and see what you think.
What are they afraid of? That's a very good question. What are they afraid of? And the truth is that he's been unjustifiably punished. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, when you think what inner strength this man must have to survive.
What are his chances of parole this time?
I'd like to be optimistic, but I'm not. He's one of the more sensible prisoners and would do well with support if he were released and would not be a danger to the public.
Bronson, who now calls himself Charles Salvador, is being held in the segregation unit of this high-security jail. In a voice message to Sky News, Bronson summed up his despair.
I've never murdered anyone. I've never raped anyone. What am I in jail for?
At his last hearing, the parole board accepted that Bronson's behaviour had improved, but it needed to be tested more fully in a less restrictive prison regime. He was moved here, but he's still locked up on his own for 23 hours a day. Reducing Bronson's high security rating, testing him with other inmates, that's a decision for the Ministry of Justice. Will it ever allow that? The MOJ won't comment on individual cases. John Podmore was a prison governor who did move Bronson to a normal cell. It lasted a few weeks.
We made the first steps along that and we were monitoring it closely. But then out of the blue, I got a phone call. Charlie's taken the Iraqis, and I knew who that meant. We had Iraqis, the hijackers. He'd taken them hostage. They were bound and tied and hog-tied, so thoroughly unpleasant. Bit of me was kind of heartbroken because we'd failed. Ultimately, you know, when he's in full violence mode, then it's staff in riot gear, you know, with shields and batons, you know, and it's very violent, it's very unpleasant.
What's it going to take for somebody to make that bold decision to move him into a less restrictive regime?
Well, now, with the added dimension of serious organised crime, the level of drugs, radicalisation, you know, the general chaos in the system, it makes it 1,000 times more difficult.
So do you think he'll ever come out?
I think the chances are diminishing.
This is Bronson, the amateur boxer, during a brief prison release years ago. In his recent letter, he had little hope of parole this year, but he is planning a freedom party for 2028.
Martin is here with me now in the studio. We're both joined by Richard Booth, a friend and supporter of Charles Bronson and his power of attorney. Good evening to you both. Richard, I'll come to you in a second, but Martin first. You've been following this story for decades. He's been in prison on and off for even longer. Everyone knows who he is. So do you think it's likely that he will be released? The parole board will allow him to come out?
I don't think anybody who's had anything to do with him believes that he will come out soon or even should come out soon, because you have to bear in mind, after 52 years in prison, any move to the outside is going to be traumatic. Although I spoke to him on the phone a few days ago and he seemed quite relaxed about the idea of freedom, but even he doesn't think he's going to get his freedom during this current parole review. He thinks it might happen in 2 years' time when the next parole review rolls on. You'll have seen in my report talking to a former prison governor at Belmarsh, who was very supportive of him, and he thinks he should eventually get his freedom. But he says it's going to be increasingly difficult. What everybody agrees is that he should be moved through the prison system, taken out of segregation, shown that he can behave with other prisoners and mix with other prisoners, towards a move eventually to an open prison and then freedom. But does the prison service have the courage to do that? That's the big issue. The parole board can recommend that move through the prison system, but it can't insist on it. It's still a question for the Secretary of State. And after all these years, will somebody be brave enough to take what they think would be a risk?
Richard, let me bring you in. What do you think? Do you think he's likely to get his wish and come out this time, or do you agree with Charles Bronson that perhaps it might be the next time it happens?
Yeah, Charlie and I have spoke about this long and hard, and you know, all we can hope for on this parole review is to get a progressive move and a down categorisation, as Martin quite rightly said. Charlie's a realist. He knows we'll probably get nothing on this, but we need to look to get a progressive move. This was one thing that was overlooked 3 years ago in the last parole, where they said they couldn't progress him where he currently was, and yet we're still waiting 3 years later for a progressive move. He's in segregation in Long Lartin, which is not the best place for him. How can the prisoner prove how much they've changed if they're not given the element to prove that? And again, the prison service needs to give him a progressive move so we can show how much he's changed.
And Richard, you're not particularly happy about the prison he's in the moment. I think it's Long Lartin, isn't it, where he's at?
Yeah. I mean, it's a segregation block. People are there for punishment. He shouldn't be there. And I know probably some of the public are probably thinking, well, you know, he's bound to say that he's a friend. You know, I like Charlie, like to treat people as I find him, and I find him as somebody who has changed a lot. He's not the facade that people portray him in that he was 30, 40 years ago. He's something different now. And I think he's more than due and shown he's changed in order to get a progressive move. Long Larton is, like I said, it's a segregation block. He's 73 years old. It's not the place for him to progress.
You say he's different now. I mean, who are we to argue? You know better than many. But do you think his notoriety, we all know who he is. I mean, he's a pretty striking photo he takes, obviously, and he had a film made about him and everything else. Do you think that notoriety, that infamy really counts against him?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And again, Charlie and I spoke about this a lot. If he could lose the Bronson facade, and as people say, and the line that always gets dropped, you know, Britain's most notorious and violent prisoner, how can anybody pursue any sort of progression with that tag against them? He's not that person anymore. He's Charles Salvador. You know, he's rehabilitated himself through his art. You know, I see a totally different person to what he was 30 years ago. And I think he deserves a chance to prove how much he's changed.
What's keeping him going? Because his mum's still alive, isn't she, in her 90s? Is it seeing her that he most wants?
That above anything else, he said, you know, he wants to come out to taste freedom to see his mum before she passes away. She's 95 now. And as Martin said previously, the longer he's in there, the longer that sort of hope diminishes. He wants to come out. He doesn't want to be in the limelight. He wants to pursue his art as he's done for the last, 25, 30 years, help people. He does a lot for charity. You know, we have our own charity, Born for Art Foundation, that supports underprivileged children and young people to get involved with art. That was his saving factor. That's his rehabilitation. He just wants to live the rest of his life out in freedom and be given a chance to progress to show that. And, as we've said before, he may not get anything on this parole hearing, but if there's a glimmer of hope that they can either down categorize him or give him his progression to mingle with more inmates to prove what he can do in the future, it lands him in better stead for his next parole in 2 years, or at the outside 4 more years.
Interesting, Martin. Richard's saying there he doesn't want to live in the limelight, but if he did come out, he may now have no choice in that. He's eminently recognisable, and the papers would want to know where he is and what he's up to.
He'd certainly be invited onto every true crime podcast that exists. I mean, and I do one. I know how many there are, and I'd certainly be in the queue to talk to him. He would find that probably quite irresistible. The idea that he could go off into some remote cottage and sit there doing his drawings and his artwork and be unbothered, unmolested, I think is pie in the sky. Lots of people will want to make his acquaintance. And of course, the other problem is, and this may be why the prison service is reluctant to move him to mix with other prisoners, that, there are going to be people in prison who want to take a pot at him. And how's he going to react if he's under that kind of provocation? That could be his downfall. If the prison service suddenly, maybe in the next few days decides that they'll do that, mix him with other prisoners, and he gets attacked or provoked and he attacks, then he'll be straight back into segregation. And that could probably be the end of all his parole hopes.
Richard, back to you. I mean, that is a risk, isn't it? And a very real risk, as Martin describes it. The other one, if he comes out, is the institutionalisation that he has experienced. He's served time in prison longer than many people who've murdered. So you have to wonder what it would be like if he did suddenly walk out into the outside world and all the rapid change that's happened in the time he's been there.
Absolutely. And again, we're realist about this. It would be a total culture shock for Charlie. He's got no grasp of technology. But equally, for his probation and to come out on parole, I think there needs to be a controlled process for this. Hence why we're not expecting anything on this parole hearing. He needs a clear progression plan that allows him to assimilate with people, but not put him at risk. But again, the probation and process for release to integrate back into society needs to be a prolonged effort. That goes over a couple of years, so he feels more assimilated back into society, and that is for him as well as society, as they find him as well.
In terms of what he's missed out on. Has he ever used a smartphone, social media, online shop? Has he ever done any of that kind of thing? I'm guessing the answer is no, given where he is.
No, not at all. I mean, he's been in segregation for over 40 years. He said he wouldn't know. He uses a phone. He's got a phone in cell so he can make calls. That's as most technology as he's used in the last 52 years, or at least 40 years at least. That's something that myself and other close friends would have to help him with. Not saying that it's not a possibility, but he's missed out on so much technology. How do you start to sort of pick that up? But he has myself and close friends who will help him with that.
Listen, Richard, the final question, because so much of this is fascinating, but the final question has to be, does he regret the actions that have put him where he is now?
Yeah, of course he does. I mean, we speak about that at length, and he said he deserved the punishment he got for the first 30 years. He was a bad man. But as I've just mentioned, he's not that person he was 30 years ago. And if he could take it back, he would do. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. But he's where he is now. He's never been closer to tasting freedom. But again, we're realistic. Progression has to come first.
Richard Booth, appreciating you joining us. And Martin, good to see you in the studio as well. Thank you very much indeed. Let's just take you to the White House now, where Donald Trump is speaking to mark Black History Month. And in the past few minutes, he paid tribute to the late Jesse Jackson.
I want to begin by expressing our sadness at the passing of a person who I knew very well. Jesse was a piece of work, I want to tell you. He was a piece of work, but he was a good man. He was a real hero, and I just want to pay my highest respects to Reverend Jesse Jackson. He's a good man. He was actually, as you got to know him, he got better and better all the time. A lot of people, you get to know them, they get worse and worse. Jesse got better and better. But I knew him well long before becoming president, and he really was special with lots of...
We will return to some of Donald Trump's comments he made earlier this evening as well about the Chagos Islands very shortly. But next, a week ago, it looked like Sir Keir Starmer had finally managed to persuade him to support his plans to hand over the Chagos Islands to Mauritius and lease back the military base on Diego Garcia. So the news coming out of Washington this evening probably came as a bit of a surprise to the PM, with the president once again attacking the deal and urging the UK to resist wokeism. Let's bring in our political correspondent, Mari Aurora, who's in Westminster now. Mari, it seems to be chopping and changing on a fairly frequent basis in terms of what the White House thinks about the Chagos deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is part of the problem, really, for Keir Starmer this evening, is the fact that the US administration and Donald Trump have changed their position, their mind, their viewpoint on the Chagos deal between the UK and Mauritius about 4 times now. It was only yesterday the US government put out a statement where they said that they supported the deal between the UK and Mauritius. And now, today, Donald Trump is saying something else. Let me read you just a section of what Donald Trump has posted on social media this evening. He says, Prime Minister Starmer should not lose control for any reason of Diego Garcia by entering a tenuous, at best, 100-year lease. This land should not be taken away from the UK, and if it is allowed to be, it will be a blight on our great ally. We will always be ready, willing and able to fight for the UK, but they have to remain strong in the face of wokeism and other problems put before them. Do not give away Diego Garcia. That last bit in caps letters with a huge exclamation mark. That is Donald Trump publicly ordering the UK Prime Minister to change direction on the deal with Mauritius, on this Chagos Islands deal. And this is really quite extraordinary. Now, why is Donald Trump doing this? Well, we're trying to figure out how much whiplash number 10 is realistically going to be experiencing right now. We understand this has really come as quite a surprise to the government this evening. Slightly ironically, Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, is actually in the US at the moment and is due to be meeting with the likes of, for instance, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State in the US, in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. So the timing of this is pretty extraordinary. But I think also what's important to note and to point out here is what the US administration and Donald Trump are doing in relation to Iran. Now, it's important to show that actually the US are trying to get a deal with Iran on their nuclear disarmament, for instance. And they are looking at potential bases they might need while they kind of ramp up some of their presence in certain regions and areas and strategic bases in and around Europe and also the Middle East. And Diego Garcia might be one of those, as well as a UK base in Gloucestershire, for instance, as well. And therefore, there is more to this than just Donald Trump trying to potentially publicly humiliate the UK Prime Minister. They are concerned about that, trying to pressure really the UK not to hand back Diego Garcia, partly because of that and those discussions and negotiations with Iran. So there is a whole lot at play here. But in terms of how Keir Starmer deals with this now, well, he's probably going to be minded to stay calm, take a beat and try not to antagonise Donald Trump, at least publicly. We know that Donald Trump and Keir Starmer spoke on the phone yesterday, and we were not told whether the Diego Garcia Chagos deal was mentioned. I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah, keep calm and carry on seems to have been his strategy for a while, doesn't it, Mari? Thank you very much indeed. Next, West Midlands Police is the latest UK force to say it's assessing information linked to paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, with officers now looking at private flights into and out of Birmingham Airport. It comes as Surrey Police ask anyone who has information about alleged abuse in the county in the 1990s to come forward. Amelia Harper's here with me now. And look, this was serious enough previously, but it certainly seems to be more so now because of this.
Yes, certainly. Now multiple police forces are looking into information that is slowly coming out of the Epstein files. They're looking into allegations of non-recent sexual assault and human trafficking dating back as far as 30 years. And these are forces including the Met, including Surrey Police, including Essex Police. They're all reviewing parts of those files. And at the moment, Matt, there is a national coordination group that's being set up by the National Police Chiefs Council and the National Crime Agency to support the forces as they collectively look at this. As you said, we've heard from West Midlands Police. They are looking into private flights in and out of Birmingham Airport. You also mentioned Surrey Police. They're reviewing allegations that allegedly happened in Virginia waters between 1994 and 1996. These were within a report that was released in December. We've got a statement from them now. The forces said, after reviewing our systems using the limited information available to us, we found no evidence of these allegations being reported to Surrey Police. We therefore encourage anyone with information in relation to these allegations to report this to us online or via 101. And they've said that if there's any new information that's come forward, they will be investigating it. But this now takes the total number of forces that are looking into this to 8 now. In the last few days, we heard from Bedfordshire Police that they were looking at flights in and out of London Luton Airport. Then we also heard from Essex. They're looking at flight logs for flights that went in and out of Stansted Airport. And we also know, you'll remember in the last month, Thames Valley Police said it was assessing claims that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shared confidential information with Epstein during his time as the UK's trade envoy. He's always denied any wrongdoing. Then we heard, of course, from the Metropolitan Police that they were looking into the homes of Peter Mandelson in a alleged misconduct in public office probe. He's always apologised for his ongoing links with Epstein and apologised to the victims. I think also separately today, Matt, but importantly linked, I suppose, is we've heard from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and she was questioned about Andrew's links with Jeffrey Epstein. And she was asked today about whether he should, there are reports about whether he should receive his £7,000 a month state pension that he could reportedly receive from tomorrow because he turned 66. He paid national insurance contributions during his time in the Royal Navy and so would therefore be eligible. This was her response.
Look, the former Prince has got a lot of questions to answer on a whole range of issues, and I think he owes it to the victims of Epstein and his associates to come forward and give much more information about what he knew around the treatment of young women and girls.
Well, royals aren't normally allowed to claim this money, but because of his time in the Navy, he could. For context, King Charles donates this to charity.
Certainly caught the Chancellor by surprise, that question, didn't it?
Swerved effectively.
Yeah, stuttered at the start there. Thank you very much indeed, Amelia. Got some breaking news for you now. The Foreign Office has responded to Donald Trump's criticism of the deal to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. An FCDO spokesperson said the deal to secure the joint UK-US military base on Diego Garcia is crucial to the security of the UK and our key allies and to keeping the British people safe. The agreement we've reached is the only way to guarantee the long-term future of this vital military base. Now to a story that broke earlier today, and the NHS is delaying thousands of knee and hip operations because of a shortage globally of bone cement. There's reportedly just a one-week supply remaining in the UK due to a major issue at a production site in Germany. Orthopaedic surgeon Matt Barbet joins me now. He's the former president of the British Orthopaedic Association, Mark, so very well qualified to talk to us about this. Really appreciate you joining us this evening. It sounds pretty desperate, is it?
Well, it's a real problem, and we've had to address this relatively short notice problem of a lack of medical bone cement. This is a material that anchors artificial joints to the bone in many, many thousands of operations every week. So many thousands of operations means, I assume, many thousands of people tonight wondering what's going on with theirs. Yes, this is a real problem with respect to our patients who we wish to try and ensure that they get their operations in a timely way. What we're working with all the stakeholders in order to identify how long the delay might be, but it becomes a bitter blow to many patients, exactly as you said. Yeah, look, I know people have had hip replacements, knee operations on the NHS. And they have to wait quite a long time for them already, don't they? So to keep waiting even longer because of this shortage must be incredibly frustrating for them. Yeah, incredibly frustrating. And we empathise with their particular area. But we have to prioritise the usage of this material. It's used in many hip fractures. About 900 hip fractures a week across the UK use this particular material, and perhaps 2,000 knee replacements and similar numbers of hip replacements. So what we've been trying to do is to work with Department of Health and Security, NHS England, and those in the devolved nations, and our colleagues and professionals, identify the first clinical priorities, those who are in most need, the urgent cases, those with fractures, those perhaps with cancer or infection, and prioritise the usage of this material for those first, and then see if there are or seek alternatives to this particular supplier. We're working hard to try and identify the alternatives and if those can increase their production in order to meet the demand. Yeah. So whilst there might be estimated 2-month delay from this particular supplier, we're hoping that it won't be that long at all, and then we can get back up and running much quicker. Is it the kind of stuff the NHS could have stocked up on? Well, I mean, you can only carry so much of this. I think we use, something like the order of 4,500 to 5,000 of these units per week. And the storage space would be difficult, like many elements of supply chain. And the NHS supply chain is fantastic in what it does every day and every week. There's only a certain capacity. OK. In terms of finding an alternative supplier, how easy is that? Because I think I read you said that this one supplier supplies something like 80% of what the NHS needs. So, they dominate this. They do dominate it, and there are various reasons for that. And other suppliers who've been part of the conversation in the last few days are increasing their production. But this is a global shortage. That much of Europe uses it. And whilst we're trying to identify other alternatives at the moment, not every operation needs cement, and we're looking at other uncemented options in order to reduce the delays that occur. There is going to be undoubtedly a bit of a delay whilst we prioritise those who in most need. Just on that uncemented option, if someone gets offered that, are they going to wonder if they're being shortchanged somehow in the operation? That's an interesting question. Probably about 2/3 of hip replacements are undertaken with cement and about 1/3 aren't. But it's not something you can jump to or change technique quickly. And also there will be a supply issue with those implants. So yes, we're looking at all opportunities to make sure that the delay for patients is minimised.
Yeah. Look, a final question. Have you ever known anything like this before? You know, a supplier not being able to meet the demand and running short and operations being delayed. Is this unusual, or has it happened to you before?
Well, it is unusual. I mean, my 25 years or so as a consultant, we've not seen it with bone cement. We have seen it with respect to implants. After COVID, there was a shortage of metal and the productions of certain implants were reduced. So yes, we have seen supply issues in the past. And so we work together with all the stakeholders to try and make sure there are alternatives available as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your time and your insight into the situation.
It's a pleasure, Matt. Thank you for asking.
Next, a group of MPs is calling for an immediate ban on the cosmetic procedure known as the Brazilian butt lift. The BBL involves dermal fillers being injected into someone's buttocks. It's one of a number of non-surgical procedures which are often carried out by unlicensed practitioners. And the Women and Equalities Committee says a lack of regulation has led to what they say is a wild west in the cosmetics industry. Josephina Finch is a victim of a botched Brazilian butt lift and joins me now. And Josephina, I'm glad to say you look well and clearly bounced back from this situation, but it was pretty terrible what you went through. Just describe what happened.
Well, I decided to get a BBL with implants, and unfortunately the implants got infected, and then shortly after I actually got a blood clot in my left leg, which I did catch in time, but pretty much everything that could go wrong went wrong for me.
Because to recover, you had to be on your front all the time, lying still, and that's what caused the blood clot. That, well, we know what happens if blood clots are in your system. They can kill you, can't they? So that could have been it.
Yeah, that's it. I had a gut feeling I had a blood clot, but actually I wasn't showing many signs of a blood clot in my leg, but I felt that my leg wasn't right. It felt weird to me. So I pushed to get it checked, and I did have a really large blood clot on the back of my knee. But I had no idea that the risks from this operation would have ended up like this. Absolutely not.
And you had it abroad, but I think you came back to the UK, and that's where you got treated properly, basically.
I got blood thinners from the UK. I had the operation abroad, but I had blood thinners in the UK, which did disperse my blood clot. But I did have a piece of the blood clot travel to my lung, which is a pulmonary embolism. Luckily, I'd already started the blood thinners, so it didn't kill me. But it's so easy, to kill somebody because, blood clots, as everyone knows, are deadly.
Yes, absolutely. Well, look, now people hear what you went through, they'll be wondering why you did it in the first place. Why did you decide to have this, what sounds like now, quite a risky procedure?
To be honest, if I'm 100% honest, I didn't really do it out of an insecurity. I did it because the world around us normalises altering our bodies, and it felt really easy for me to do that. And the place that I went to in Spain was saying, this is a safe BBL. We're safe. So I felt like I was in good hands.
Did you do your homework? Did you check them out? Were they I don't know what they need to be. Were they registered? Were they proper doctor? What was the setup?
Absolutely. Board certified, did my homework. A lot of people say to me, actually, you've probably just gone to a back street. But I went, in my opinion, I researched it, and he was the best of the best and the safe doctor, and it still went wrong for me. So
looking back and everything you've been through, is there any long-term damage there? Has it led to the opposite of what you wanted, with disfigurement or anything like that?
No, so I haven't been disfigured, but I do have nerve damage, and obviously it's mentally affected me. Obviously, I understand that people can say, well, you shouldn't have gone and done it. But I wanted to say, if people who've been harmed by this are silent, then nobody ever knows anything but a success story. So that's why, obviously, I wanted to tell people the risks and and things like that. But I think mentally it's probably had the biggest effect on me. I have been able to go to the gym and grow my bum in the gym, which I should have done in the first place, but, you know.
Listen, a group of MPs is calling for an immediate ban on the procedure here. Now, I don't know if that make a difference to people who then go abroad. And you hear about people going to Turkey and Spain and lots of places to do this. But nevertheless, what's your view on them thinking that's a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. I mean, everyone needs to be given all the information and things like that. I think if it's so easy to go and do, then young girls and impressionable girls are going to go and do it because it's just what everyone's doing on social media, and, you know, influencers are doing it. So it does need to be banned.
Can I come back to it? Is it as simple as that? People see it on social media. These images are flashing at them all the time. They think, I'm going to go and do the same thing. Is that all it boils down to?
I think so, because then you see it in real life. You think, well, if they're okay to do it, there's no complications, so I can go and do it, which is exactly what happened to me. I thought, well, you know, it's possible, but you don't actually see the complications and the risks that are attached to it. It's so common for it to go wrong, not just with Backstreet. That's what I wanted to stress was everyone thinks that it's a cowboy. It's not. It's having surgery on your bottom is high risk, whether they're really highly trained or not. It's still high risk. And obviously
my final question, Josephina, is obviously you were influenced by what you saw on the screen, but now do you see, and I use in inverted commas, natural bodies, do you see them differently to how you used to before? You think, well, perhaps that's the better way to go without invasive procedures?
I just wish that I'd used exercise as a way to make me feel better, because it doesn't just make you feel better physically, it makes you feel better mentally, and that's, you know, now what I'm doing now. I just wish that I'd looked at that in the first place rather than trying to get a quick fix that is so life-threatening if it goes wrong.
Yeah, good point. And hopefully exercise keeps you living longer as well and healthy into old age. That's the plan anyway. Josephina, really appreciate you coming on to the UK tonight to talk to us about what you went through. That's Josephina Finch joining us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come on the programme, Europe's football governing body says it's going to investigate the racism row that halted a Champions League game. We'll bring you more on that.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay.
Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes. I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Next, European football's governing body, UEFA, says it's going to investigate allegations of discriminatory behaviour during Real Madrid and Benfica's Champions League tie. Last night's game had to be halted for 10 minutes after Real's Brazilian player Vinicius Jr. accused Benfica's Gianluca Prestiani of racism. The allegation has been denied, but the row that's followed has been described as a disgrace to football. Sky's sports correspondent Rob Harris has more.
It is never easy for a footballer to report being racially abused, and yet it is painfully familiar for Vinicius Jr. On the biggest of stages in the Champions League, leading a walk-off by Real Madrid, the game stopped for 11 minutes. And yet Benfica seemed to make a difficult situation even worse. Rather than showing empathy, this sounded like victim blaming by Jose Mourinho.
This happens in so many stadiums. It's always the same thing. Something here is wrong. I told Vinicius on the pitch, you've scored an extraordinary goal. Why do you celebrate in this way? Why doesn't he celebrate the way Stefani did, Pele, Eusebio did?
Benfica is continuing to lash out, decrying a defamation campaign against their player, Gianluca Prestiani, concerning a former Manchester United star who advises FIFA on racism.
For Jose Mourinho to divert and even vilify Vinicius Jr.'s behavior for celebrating the goal like he did, it's not the way that a top manager like him should do. So we expect better.
And the club's response the next day was to go further, decrying a defamation campaign against their player. Prestiani persists with denials, saying he's never been racist towards anyone and claimed he received threats from Madrid players. But from within Madrid, claims the slur was used 5 times and that Benfica players also heard it.
Asking a Benfica player what he said to Vinicius, I think everyone here, everyone in the world of football deserves to hear that answer. And that's all I can say. Obviously, I think that it's clear that tolerance for racism has to be absolute for us, and we can't allow things like this to happen on a football pitch in 2026.
A UEFA ethics and disciplinary inspector will analyse the videos and gather evidence. FIFA's president Gianni Infantino has made a clear call for authorities to take action and hold those responsible to account, even if FIFA doesn't always act as robustly when it's the competition organiser. Which is why, when the world asks why racism is still a stain on football, why black players fear being abused in stadiums and online, the words and actions of those with status and power come under greater scrutiny.
If a player is found guilty of racial abuse, he should suffer career consequences. And I'm not talking about a 2 or 3 or 4 game ban. Probably if he gets banned for half a season, he will think twice about doing it again.
Vinicius feels he isn't being protected enough, and the Brazilian superstar could have to face the alleged perpetrator next week in the second leg in Madrid. Rob Harris, Sky News.
Let's have a chat about this now with Sanjay Bandari, chair of the anti-discrimination charity Kick It Out. Sanjay, good to see you. When you saw this happen last night, what went through your mind?
Yeah, good evening, Matt. Thank you for inviting me on. What went through my mind? Here we go again. This is not my first rodeo. We have seen and heard this before. And if that was bad enough, what was worse was what followed, because the racism and you could see the emotional reaction of the player and his teammates. That's one thing. The gaslighting by Jose Mourinho and the gaslighting by Benfica are quite another. That's adding insult to injury.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's bad enough. But then Mourinho saying, well, Eusebio played for Benfica, so we can't be racist. I mean, I hate to say it, you know, it's been written about in columns today. It's that old trope, well, some of my friends are this, so I can't be that. It's basically that, isn't it?
That's exactly it. And I think I've used the same words to your colleagues earlier today. Look, I think what Mourinho said was absolutely shameful. And it was shameful in two respects. First, the comment that you're talking about, to say we've got a club legend, he's black, therefore we're not a racist club, therefore this player can't be racist. He's, yes, some of my best friends are black. It's just exactly the same. It's the same old lazy old trope to try and deflect attention. I think the other thing that was scandalous and shameful was to try to blame Vinicius Jr. for his celebration. I mean, you heard it there in the VT just before this interview, and suggested why can't you celebrate like Di Stefano and Puskas? The irony, the hypocrisy of this coming from Jose Mourinho accusing somebody else of being provocative. Jose Mourinho is one of the most provocative people in world football. How is that? How is what Vinicius Jr. did? How is that different to what Jose Mourinho did at Old Trafford when he was with Porto, when he did his knee slide?
Yeah.
And this is someone, who also has poked Tito Villanova in the eye and called him Pito, which is a slur in Spanish. He is a wind-up merchant. He's the biggest wind-up merchant in world football.
Sanjay, your picture paused there, but we can still hear your voice, so let's keep chatting.
Sorry.
No, not at all. It's not your fault, no. But whilst we look at pictures of Vinicius Jr., and it has to be said, he's been on the receiving end of a lot of this, hasn't he? Not just last night, but too many once is too many, clearly, but too many times in his experience, he's been on the receiving end.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a serial victim. It's almost like he's being victimised and he's being identified and targeted for abuse. It's happened many, many times, particularly in Spain. And so that's why the response from Mourinho and Benfica is doubly disappointing, because they've clearly seen that and are sort of leaning into it and making it his fault. If this person is a victim and has called it out, then it must be his fault.
A lot of British football fans, all the fans of the Premier League and the Championship, will look at this and think, is it still as much of a problem here in British football? You see this kind of thing on the continent. Just talked about Vinicius Jr. and how much he's been on the receiving end. Clearly, there are connections to that match. I think it was Trent Alexander-Arnold who had his arms around Vinicius Jr. after he was incensed. Is it as much of a problem here in the UK, or have the authorities, have the players got their heads around the fact that this kind of thing is completely unacceptable?
Look, we still have some challenges here. We saw it on the first weekend of the season with a fan abusing Antoine Semenyo at Anfield. And so, we can't pretend that we are completely free and clear and that this is not a problem for us. I think in many ways what we saw last night was a microcosm of the best and worst of football, right? And the best in the sense of the player was able to complain. We've got a protocol now for interrupting the game. There's going to be an investigation. If someone's found guilty, there'll be sanctions. These things didn't exist 30, 40 years ago. What we also saw was the players supporting their teammates and roundly being condemned, and the calling out today from the punditocracy all around the world. But we're also seeing the worst in the sense of the behaviour itself, the denial, and the behaviour of Benfica and Jose Mourinho.
Punditocracy is a new word for me, and I'm going to use that a lot from now on, I have to say, Sanjay. Listen, just to finish off, it paused the game for 10 minutes, but do you think they should have just walked on and refused to play last night after that?
Look, as far as the players are concerned, whatever the players want to do, we would support. If they feel like they want to walk off a pitch, we will support them. We back them. This is their place of work. They're entitled to dignity at work. If someone were an actor in the theatre and were racially abused, you wouldn't expect them to stay on stage. So if they wanted to do that, we would support them. By the same token, I understand from the perspective of UEFA and the governing bodies that they have to have some kind of protocol. And whenever you start to develop a protocol, it becomes quite difficult to enforce, because you start getting into, well, how can it be gamed? What if someone makes a false or an erroneous claim? And so what we're left with is this three-step protocol, which I suspect nobody likes and everyone finds unsatisfactory, but it's probably the least bad of a set of absolutely terrible options.
Sanjay, appreciate you joining us this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, we'll be discussing the sport and the Premier League title race. We'll tell you why it was a very good night for Anthony Gordon as well for Newcastle in the Champions League.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've come to one of Moscow's Cold War bunkers. It was built as a top-secret command centre.
Being here really feels like you're stepping back in time. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
A show of military might and menace.
Courage, bravery and sacrifice will win the day.
It's a new subject. They'll learn about combat drones and some how to handle a Kalashnikov.
The Kremlin continues to put forward its own version of events, both present and past.
There's no mention of the fact that Russia invaded its neighbour. That's rewriting history, isn't it?
Now we have to read it carefully.
Vladimir Putin put forward his plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine, telling Kiev, pull out of your eastern territories and the war will end. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Vladimir Putin is already the Kremlin's longest-serving leader since Stalin. The question is, what will a fifth Putin term mean for Russia and the world?
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Segal?
I can't answer questions that stupid.
I've watched Vladimir Putin attempt to create a new world order.
The St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the backdrop to Vladimir Putin's latest verbal volley that Russia could send missiles to other nations to target the West.
Ambassador, I wonder, shall we have a quick word for Sky News?
Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine?
Swedish media, oh my God, you're not afraid of being here.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
Russia says Evan Gershkovich was caught red-handed, but has never produced any evidence to back that up. Sky News. Get the full story.
Time to chat sport. Jess is here with me now in the studio. Good to see you. Let's talk about the Premier League title race. You've got the leaders Arsenal against bottom of the table Wolves. I was just glancing during the break to see what the score was, but how are they doing? Because you think Arsenal are going to walk that one.
You would think, but that's not a given, considering we're at this stage of the season where it's high stakes, high pressure, every point is precious.
Yeah.
And we know that Arsenal were going for their first league title since 2004. We're talking over 20 years. But as you rightly say, they're up against Wolves tonight. They're away from home in the West Midlands at Molineux, and they started as well as they ever could have wanted. Bukayo Saka with the opening goal after just 5 minutes. And Saka, of course, has been in the headlines with that great goal. Yeah.
Unusual.
Very unusual for Bukayo Saka. A great way to celebrate his new contract after becoming Arsenal's best paid player in recent days. So he's got the goal. His teammates all celebrating around him. It's just got to half-time in the match, and Arsenal are leading 1-0.
You and I support other teams, but I find Bukayo Saka very hard to dislike. Yes. I think he's a very likeable...
On and off the field.
Yeah,
he's a great player to watch. He's mesmerising to watch. And when he's off it, he holds himself with such authority and speaks so well. And he's got a lovely smile.
He has, and a great unicorn that he likes to ride in a swimming pool.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Times.
If this result stays the same, how big of an impact will it have on Arsenal's title hopes and obviously the hopes of City and perhaps even Villa as well?
Yeah, it's big. I mean, like you rightly say, Wolves are bottom of the table. Arsenal expected to win, but they're dealing with the pressure. That's what this shows. 3 points, it means they'll be 7 points clear of their nearest challengers, Manchester City, having played a game more. And what a season this could turn out to be for Arsenal. You know, 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League if they win. They're through to the 5th round of the FA Cup. They're into the last 16 of the Champions League, and they've got that League Cup final to look forward to in March. It could be a record-breaking, historic season for Arsenal for more reasons than one.
Don't say the quadruple. You'll jinx it.
I didn't say it. You said it.
I did.
I did. OK, well, you know, Arsenal doing well in that match. But before they took to the field, Newcastle were in action in the Champions League. An update to come in just a couple of minutes.
Michael, would you mind giving us a clap to all the cameras, please?
He's spuggy to his mates, the latest teen sensation of West Ham's endless conveyor belt of football talent.
I got in the first team and I got in the England squad. Everything was rosy.
He always was an intelligent footballer.
West Ham United Football Club.
They're taking the calls at Upton Park. Now West Ham are preparing to sell their most talented midfielder.
We knew that financial pressure, Michael was definitely going.
Once Tottenham was involved, there was only one team that I wanted to come to. Jack Santini was the manager. I don't think he really knew who I was.
How did Santini react when you'd signed Michael Carrick?
Yeah, he was not very happy.
It's funny, in sliding doors, a career could have gone down a whole different path.
Martin, he saw the quality of him. I have to play this guy. He was my conductor.
I was so happy at Tottenham.
Now bids come in, his future's uncertain.
And there was a bit of interest. You get whispers and this and that.
I approached Daniel. We'd like to buy Michael. He clearly at that point said he's not for sale.
Daniel was pretty stubborn.
He was a great negotiator.
There's a myth around Daniel.
Good stuff, Jess. Thank you very much indeed. Now let's take a very quick look at the weather and Storm Pedro.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Just teasing you about Storm Pedro there, but it's named for potential impact over France. It will clear tomorrow, but will bring some possibly disruptive rain and hail snow to southern Britain. Southern and northwestern Britain, Northern Ireland and the east of Ireland will be mostly wet this evening, with hail snow falling from around Wales northwards. Elsewhere, expect just a few showers, wintry in the north. It'll remain very windy with gales near western coasts. Central and southeastern England will be wet tonight with rain and hail snow extending into Yorkshire. Elsewhere, northern and western parts will largely dry up inland, although northern Scotland will see more extensive showery outbreaks for a time. Western Irish coasts will see showers later and the wind will ease inland. England will see rain and hail snow becoming largely confined to Yorkshire and Durham tomorrow morning. Most other places look dry if cloudy, but the far northwest will stay wet.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
I got very excited about Storm Pedro there, didn't I? That's all from the UK tonight. Up next with Dominic Waghorn, it is The World. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.